A new report suggests that our digital assistants and smart devices could soon be eavesdropping on us in the future. Google and Amazon have filed patent applications that outline an array of possibilities for how their devices could monitor more of what users say and do. Both companies are the leading sellers of digital assistants. The information the devices obtain could be used to identify a person's desires or interests, and that data could then be mined for ad targeting and product recommendations. This is happening amid a growing data scandal involving Facebook and Cambridge Analytica. Amazon and Google say they take privacy seriously and are looking to explore the possibilities of this new technology. Let's get right to it with our Dan Patterson. He is a senior writer at TechRepublic, a division of CBS Interactive. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
Dan, the public is becoming more and more aware of the power of big data. You know, what are companies looking to do with this information that they're able to gather?
Well, look, if data is the new oil, then the more you have, the more powerful you are, and you can use big data to feed recommendation engines and advertising systems that create more effective shopping systems. What this data is really being used for is to train artificial intelligence algorithms to be more effective at lots of different functions.
Can this benefit society? I mean, we always talk about that, right? The delicate balance between the technology that's invasive and the technology that helps our lives be a little easier.
You're exactly right. It's a delicate balance, and we talk about the compromises between security and convenience in security all the time. Yes, data can be incredibly helpful. We're seeing this in the smart home and the smart home office right now. And in fact, more and more businesses are using the Internet of Things to make business more efficient. At the same time, with these efficiencies, a new economy, comes new trade-offs, and we have to become more comfortable with the encroachment of IoT and data into our everyday lives.
The idea of these devices listening to us, does this technology already exist? And I'll tell you why I'm asking that question. Does it already exist?
Yes, the technology already exists.
It does, right?
Yeah.
So Tony DeCoppel, who's a CBS News correspondent, and I were having a discussion a few weeks ago, and Tony mentioned that he liked the tie that I was wearing, and he asked me where I got it, and I gave him the name of the store. He'd never heard of the store before. He then, a couple of hours later, emails me and says he got an advertisement email from the store that I'd mentioned to him, and he had not Googled it. He had not ever looked it up. It was just a conversation that he and I had a couple of hours earlier. And all of a sudden, we looked at our devices and we wondered, is there something that, because it was very coincidental. What do you make of that?
That is a fun coincidence. It's one I experienced this weekend as well.
Did you as well?
The last time I saw you, you gave me fashion tips, and sure enough...
Is that all I'm good for?
I'm not kidding. Those fashion tips showed up in my news feeds.
What?
Now, there is a technology, I'm not saying that Facebook uses this, but there's a technology, a company called Silver Push, that listens for passive audio signals if you have given applications permission within your device to listen and record events. Now, there are passive signals that these companies use that they argue are more powerful, such as related products and putting you into a category with other shoppers and saying, well, if you like this and people like you like this, then you might like that. However, there are trigger events that we will see inside the Amazon Alexa and within the Google Smart Home that could cause those products to, or cause those companies to serve you the right product at the right time.
Explain to our audience what you mean by passive, because it just sounds like they're listening. What does passive mean? Like when you say that they're listening for passive phrases or words?
Well, we have to ask them what they mean, companies like Facebook, Google, and Amazon, what they mean by passive signals, but we can infer some things from their language, and that is, well, you may have clicked on something and there's a cookie or a super cookie. A super cookie is a tracker that is dropped that will respawn. So if you clear your browser history, it will come back and start serving data. So there are signals that we give and that we provide simply by behaving and acting in the world. What the public is now becoming aware of is what the triggers for those signals are and what gathering devices could be. So often we think of our interactions as being explicit, right? I chose to click that link. I chose to open an application, and I feel as though that is a proper use of my data if I made an explicit action. What these companies are doing is gathering implicit data and implicit actions to track you using a soft signal or one of those passive signals around the web.
So is it inevitable that society will have to normalize to this post-privacy world?
It's likely that we will have to normalize to this, and it's likely we already are normalizing to this. When the Alexa was announced and released in 2014, it seemed a little strange that we would put a listening device in our home. Now it seems like, hey, this can do a ton of stuff for me, and it can make life easier and more efficient. So that brings us back to the compromise. Privacy versus security, convenience versus giving up not just your data, but perhaps your mind or your thoughts or your ability to behave in a way that might not be socially acceptable, but to you is something that you need a process, a thinking process to go through in order to arrive at a conclusion.
All right, Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg, I want to talk about him. He defended his company's business model after Apple CEO Tim Cook had some very harsh words about using consumer data. Zuckerberg says his business model is the best way to make social media available to everyone in the world. He sort of also went on to say that that Facebook is free, and he sort of put that in a way that consumers would understand. Well, I get to use Facebook for free, whereas Apple charges you more and more money for its devices. But Facebook really isn't free. It's free to us to use, but we're not I keep saying this over and over again, we are not the customers of Facebook. It's the advertisers. That's
exactly right. We are the product. And it is one thing for Mr. Zuckerberg to fire back at Tim Cook. These are two CEOs, and yes, they are capable of taking care of each other. But the argument that Mr. Zuckerberg is making, especially when he talks about, well, some people just can't afford to communicate in any other way. That raises the question, well, are you then taking advantage of the most marginalized, least able to help themselves people by serving their data as well? That raises some ethical issues that I think the company has not yet wrestled with, at least publicly.
And that's a great point. Nothing is really ever for free, right? So you may not have to pay to use Facebook, but you pay in other ways, either through the loss of privacy or to the incessant ads that pop up or to the links to stories that are not necessarily true that populate your feed.
Or them tracking you around the web off of Facebook. So yes, you are the product. When a device or a service is free or very inexpensive, make sure that you have that conversation with not just yourself, but your loved ones and those who interact with you, and know where your boundaries are. What are you willing to deal with? What inconveniences are you willing to deal with versus the conveniences? So you might have an Alexa at home. You can unplug it when it's not being used.
Always great to talk to you, Dan Patterson. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.